Okay friends, we are doing another relationship reading, another love reading for you. If this resonates, then we're going to look at where this situation is, so you'll know if this reading is actually for you and what you're going through, and then we're going to look at what to do about it, how to empower you through the process. And the card that's jumped out is the Two of Cups. So we're looking at where it went wrong, how it went wrong, why it went wrong. We're looking at when it was a partnership, when you guys were coming together and everything was going great, but then all of a sudden things changed. The situation changed. Now, in case you don't know, relationships go through stages, and there's the beginning, stage one, like a honeymoon. Then stage two is when the patterns start to show up. We start to let go of putting our best foot forward, and we start to bring out our usual patterns. And at stage two, it's usually a decider as to whether people want to continue on. And I think it's really important for people to recognise that a lot of people stop at this stage and then they start again and they find something else and they're chasing the pattern. So if you find yourself stuck at stage two and it's because your shadows are starting to show, this is the phase in which we decide if we love that person enough to love all parts of them, light and dark, and how we fill each other's cups up, how we deal with conflict, how we communicate, the languages that we use, and the ownership of our share to the relationship, because both parties are coming together as an individual and then they come together to create the whole. Whatever the whole is this relationship, the creation that you two invest into, that is not created or existing without the other party. And good relationships last on values, shared values. And if that hasn't been established from the start, then it can show up later on in the relationship, and things like conflict start to happen, which we've got the conflict card here. It's the Five of Wands. Wands is the suit that is about your intentions, it's about your passions, it's about your heart's desires, it's about what it is that you would love to experience in this lifetime, and it's different for everybody. And so we have to come to acknowledging our differences and working with them, not against them, but with them. How does this contribute to the wholeness of the relationship? And it's something that people need to evaluate regularly to ensure that everybody's going the same direction. They haven't detoured and forgotten what they were working towards. This is how connections remain strong. And it looks at all areas of life, the individual as a person outside of the relationship, what their likes and dislikes are. It's to do with money. How do we spend our finances? What are we actually investing in? And how it gives back to us. And then we've got, values around family, children. Where is everything going? So this is for those who have reached that stage two at the first round. It's also a stage two for those who've been in longer term relationships and are having to reevaluate because so much conflict's come up. You guys have, gone through stuff, and there's no longer an alignment. And when we've gone out of alignment, it's about checking in and saying, how do we get back there? So imagine you're on a bus, you're expecting to go to the city. It said city when you got on it, but then they change bus drivers at one of the stops, and the bus driver that got on has decided he's going to take a different route, and he's now going to the country. So you've ended up on a completely different bus. You're both on there. You're all on there going somewhere completely different, and it's about getting off the bus and getting back on track to where you're going. And it's important to be able to communicate these things, and we throw these words around a lot, but I'm not sure that it's very well understood. The idea of communication is about speaking, encoding, and then listening and decoding the messages that are exchanged between two parties. Each person has to play the role. If you're being spoken over the top of, if people are yelling and screaming, you've obviously triggered them, and so they're asserting dominance through yelling. That's not the way to go. And if you are in that situation, first of all, remove yourself, get yourself calm. Say you want to talk about it at another time, but get yourself really clear about what it is that you want. And this other person also needs to see this reading so that you're both on the same page, but it's also that person needs to go and calm down and clear their head and understand why they got triggered in the first place. What's under threat here? Because most of the time, everybody just wants to get along and be in harmony, but we become defensive, we become standoffish when we're trying to stand up for something, or we feel threatened about our wounds or our insecurities, our shadows, and this is why people tend to step away. We have the Chariot here, which is the card that represents overcoming obstacles. It's about rising up, it's about realigning, it's about being focused, being elevated, and then moving forward. It's balancing the light and the dark shadows that arise during the relationship. We have to remember that when we step off this energy, when we step out of the energy of love and union and wholeness and unity, we go into separation, we go into our individual parts, and then these individual parts start to have their own version of how things should go. This is about simplifying and reverting back to a simplification, and it's good to acknowledge where you're at, but let it go, and then get back into this energy of love. Because love isn't yelling, love isn't frustration, love isn't silent treatment, love isn't running away, love isn't any of those things. It's actually the absence of love, and there's no judgment. It's noticing how you're responding to the situation in the way that you've responded, and then getting back on that bus to be aligned with where you're heading. Now, not everybody wants to stay on the bus with you, and so there comes another layer of rejection and uncertainty. So every love reading needs to have the cups. No cups, no love. And it feels like one party is kind of apathetic while the other party is trying to nurture their way through the relationship to get to where, back up here, back into the state of union and working together and harmonious. We've got two strong feminine figures here who are elevating, who are learning from the experience, who are actually mirroring what is required for the relationship to elevate. It's about being mature and recognizing that the more emotions that are flying around, the more misconceptions and beliefs that are out of alignment are showing up, and that's where you want to decide if any of those are actually contributing to that. And some people become quite defensive. I feel like the emotional immaturity and insecurity is not being able to handle the emotions, and someone wants someone else to deal with it. So it's like they're throwing the hot potato to the other person to catch. Now, if you do decide to catch that, it's not actually yours to catch. But if you do decide to catch it, you can transmute it, not for their benefit because they need to learn their own lessons. It's for yours. It's for yours to understand both sides and stand up for yourself and decide, is this filling up my cup or is it clogging up my cup? Because when people are, clogging up your vessel and throwing everything at you and putting the load on you and putting the weight on you, what ends up happening is that you're carrying everybody else's load, everybody else's lesson, and you've lost sight of yourself and what it is that you want, and that's not okay. While they run off and be happy and be free because they've absolved themselves, they expect someone else to look after it. They expect, the emotions go to the feminine. The emotions are the guidance to say how out of alignment you are to this union. As I said before, it's about simplification. It's about getting back to the core value of the relationship, and both parties need to be willing to let go of anything that doesn't represent this thing. It's the opportunity for a new beginning. Like if you're in a new relationship, you've only done one cycle. If you're in a long-term relationship, you've probably gone through many cycles, and it's about getting in line and going, well, we've been through this again. How did we get through it last time? What worked? What didn't? Where are we going? What are we going to do next? When we, the wands is about intention, like I said before. It's what we use when we think of wizards and witches and magicians. We're using a wand to cast magic. You don't have a multi-pronged wand, because what you're saying is you're dispersing the energy and it's leaking out into all these different elements and all these different things, and it's very it spreads the energy thinly, and when you're spreading your energy thinly, you end up getting quantity but no quality. We're resorting back to quality. We have to resort back to ourselves first when we're in conflict, and then decide what it is that we want for ourselves and what our expectations are of the relationship, and then we come forward to the other person, and there might be differences, there might be similarities, there might be compromises, but it's being more intentional, starting with you first, and that way you can elevate and make progression and progress forward. If that person has decided that, it's too hard, or they want someone else to do it for them, they want someone else to learn their lesson for them, they're not mature enough. They're not mature enough. And sometimes we have to let people suffer the consequences of their choices. You have to boomerang it back to them. If they throw you a hot potato, throw it straight back. It's bringing in some logic to the situation, but also being guided by the right feelings. If it's chaotic and messy and unsettling, it's not the right line of thinking, it's not the right mentality. We can't get to the right mentality, we can't get the right order if we haven't made the decision about what it is that we desire in the first place. We can have specific goals. When we're too specific, we lock ourselves into conditions. It becomes very conditional. If we become too generic, then it leaves us open to different possibilities that we didn't want. And so it's finding the balance between, if you're looking for a loving, harmonious relationship, then you give that generic statement a feeling. It's loving, it's harmonious, people are getting along, people are communicating, people are understanding conflict and how the conflict actually manifests itself. And there is a whole department in some companies around conflict management. So it's not just something that is made up, or you've watched your parents fight and that's the only way you know how to fight. It's not about even fighting and who's right and who's wrong. It's about finding a resolution and understanding that your perception of the end result differs from the other person's end result. That's all misunderstandings are, is a breakdown and a deciphering of the message. And sometimes we are unconscious about what it is that we actually want and what we're thinking. And that's why I say come back to you. Come back to your way of understanding what it is that the relationship brings and where you'd like to see it go. If they are on board, then they're coming aboard your ship and you're working together. If not, then you go to a different dock. We've got the moon card here, which we sort of can't have showing for community standard guidelines. So I did have to flip it, but it is the feminine looking out from the water, and this is the Vice Tarot where they have both sides. So you're actually seeing both sides of the card, as well as the light and shadow reversals. And she was looking back towards us. She's coming out of the water. She's rising out of the water. There's another feminine, and there's the feminine behind. What was she looking at? Well, she's moving towards the moon. She's moving towards the wolves. She's moving towards the very large crab. I'd be very afraid to see one of those in the water at that size. But she's moving towards the moon, and the moon is generally a representation of, at the high level, the moon is the feminine. The moon is the one that reflects the masculine. So whatever the masculine is giving, whatever thoughts are being given out, if it's not in alignment to love, there will be a sense of emotion in the body. So that is your cue within yourself. Get your head straight, get your feelings straight, get them in alignment. And then when you're in a partnership, there's generally a masculine role and a feminine role. It doesn't matter what sex you are. Whoever's the masculine is the one that leads. Whoever is feminine is the one that amplifies, is the one that is like the garden, where the masculine plants the seed and the feminine is the garden in which the seed grows. So she amplifies. I said she, but it's the feminine that amplifies. So whoever's in that role. And so she's moving towards this, and it's also about illusions. So if the person's coming from the wrong place, or it's coming from judgment, which is right, wrong, good, evil, inferior, superior, etc., then what ends up happening is it ends up in a state of conflict. We move away from this union, and then everything goes a little bit pear-shaped. And what you're looking for is reunion, reuniting, bringing together the correct relationship elements to make it whole again. So we've got the Eight of Pentacles, and this is about working at it. Everything takes work that's worth doing. Is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Yes. So while we want quick fix in this modern day and age, things like relationships take time, because we are unpacking everything that we've been carrying since we were a kid. They are unpacking everything they were carrying since they were a kid. And then there's this whole allowing the fact that the relationship could actually be amazing if you allowed it to be on both sides. It requires work. The Pentacles is around practicalities, it's around material resources, it's working with money, it's working with home life, it's working with the resources that we have in order to live a satisfying life. And we live on the earth plane, so we live inside seasons and cycles, and whatever season you may be in, it's going to change. So I'm giving you that permission to recognize that you're in a storm right now, but things change, things move, the wind blows the clouds away, and the storm settles and the sun shines again. And it might be heavy and dark right now. If you are in a really seriously life-threatening situation or emotionally threatening, then go get some support in any way that you can. When you're through this process, it's settling in with yourself and doing the work and just going, okay, well, we're in this kind of stage now, this is where we want to go, this is what isn't working, but this is where we want to go, this is where we want to go, this is where we want to end up. We want to end up in the city, or we want to end up, in the country, or we want to end up in a loving, harmonious relationship. And then it's about defining that. So as I was saying before, you can be very general about your intention, but then you have to understand what your definition is contributing to that sense. So you're understanding how you would recognize it. It might be that, and both parties need to do this, because one person's definition of a loving, harmonious relationship might not be your definition of a loving, harmonious relationship. It might be where one person likes to get coffee in the morning brought to them in bed. It might be just little sweet gestures of love notes. It might be, a phone call at the end of the day. It might be all these little things that you decide is contributing to a loving, harmonious relationship. What does harmony mean to you? What does loving mean to you? Maybe some of you need space during your relationship, not to leave, but it's a decompression phase. And the partner that you have needs to understand that. And if they're coming up with insecurities, then you both need to work on what is acceptable. What is the loving thing to do? Does that make sense for everybody? We've got the Six of Pentacles coming through. And then at the bottom of the deck we have the Four of Wands, which is happy home life, right? That's the point. That's the mission in anything that we do, is that we are fulfilled and satisfied in ways that we feel fulfilled and satisfied. And until you define that in yourself first, when you come together with this other person, then you can share of yourself. Now, if they're using it against you, then there's an issue with that person. They also need to do this. What is it that they need to feel loved, satisfied, fulfilled, so that you can come together in a harmonious union? There were things that showed up in the early stages of the relationship that may have faded into the background now because it's been highlighted by the shadows, or vice versa. It's when we start to deviate from appreciation of this person, and we think we know them, or we don't want to deal with that, we step away and we've lost the gratitude of that expression of life, of that expression of love. And sometimes we take it on and make it about ourselves, we take it personally, and we decide that we're not good enough, or we're not worthy, or we're not, whatever it is, the illusions here. The woman, she was stepping out of the water naked, the naked truth, moving forward, exposing of the self, and moving towards, whether this is an illusion or whether this is something real. And until you have a good relationship with yourself, sometimes it's difficult to see past the filters. And the Six of Pentacles, this is a really weird card for me, like expression of the card. He's looking over the city. The light side of this card is generosity. It's giving. when each person feels emotionally safe, there is just a natural want to give to the other person. And the more emotionally safe they feel on both sides, the more relaxed they are. The more relaxed they are, the more open they are. And the more open they are, the more that love flows freely. Right now, you're probably in a state of conflict and everything's contracted. You want to get back to that emotional safety. Yeah, the shadow side of this guy is that, or of this card, sorry, is control. Holding onto things and using it as a sense of control and manipulation. Whoever holds the money holds the power. That is true for many hetero relationships where the man is usually the breadwinner and it's the woman who's usually the homemaker. Right, and then there's a misconception around who does the most work. There's a visible, tangible measure when the person with the most money shows up, whereas the one with the invisible one that's making the home nice and tidy and clean and making sure the household is run. It's like running a business. Right, there's invisible labour as well. So it's just understanding both sides of this, and I feel like some of you are fighting this because one is talking about the physical, one's talking about the mental, one's talking about the tangible that can be actually physically seen, and one is talking about the invisible, the intangible that can't be seen but gets done on a daily basis. And you both have to come together and realise the contribution that comes into the relationship and appreciate and value each other and how it comes together and how it's standardised or made a nice routine to operate efficiently or as best as possible. It does put a lot of strain and stress on relationships when money is involved, and just our livelihood, the responsibility of the breadwinner, and then sometimes we have to have a two-income household to meet the lifestyle that we live in. And it puts pressure and separation on each person. As I flip the card to see what he can actually see, he's got a child there. So it's working for a reason, it's working for a purpose, it's working for family. And sometimes we lose sight of that. So it would help you both to just sit down and let go of what's fogging your mind up and write a gratitude list. Write a gratitude list. What is it that you see in each person? What they've done for you, or what they are doing, or who they are just as an individual outside of the role, what they play. I feel like part of this reading is deviated into the longer term relationships, but I haven't forgotten about those who are in the beginning stages. We start to envision the future with this person and the roles they play, and sometimes we can get caught up too much in the story about what we've created and whether that person even wants to be in that position. Again, it's coming back to definitions and working out expectations. Now, a good place to start is how your parents operated when you were growing up. Whether you like it or not, it's unspoken. Whatever you decided when you were a kid about the role of the mother and the role of the father, it's embedded in you. Same with them, it's embedded in them as well. And what happens is we unconsciously replicate our parents' relationships, not wanting to, not meaning to. It doesn't show up until we're in the relationship ourselves. And this is where it's important for people to recognise that and go, actually, this is how my parents operated. And you have to decide if that's what you want to continue on. Just because that's the way it was done for you doesn't mean you have to continue on with that. There's many people out there who have broken the cycle, broken the way that it's always been done in their family life. But it's challenging. Is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Yes. For future. And we find some people get stuck in that stage 1, stage 2 part of the relationship. It's a mechanism. The sole message for this group that's reading this and can relate to what I'm talking about is making a difference. Making a difference in your life and the one that you share it with and the generation that is following. Making a family is not easy in terms of creating that loving, harmonious relationship, not just with a loved, significant other, but with all your relationships. Your children are little mirrors of who you are. If you see if you observe a lot of families from strict cultural practices, they make little mini versions of them because they have strong belief systems and they want to surround themselves with people of the same thinking, even if it suppresses the expression of those children or the people around them. The shadow side, you look at cults, they want everyone to think the same, like them. But it's the misuse of our creative energy and life force because it suppresses everybody involved, doesn't allow people to express themselves and be who they actually are without all that cultural conditioning. And this is what happens in relationships. This is why I'm talking about roles and your expectations about who plays what role and where is it going? Where is it actually contributing towards? Because if you choose to have a family with this person, you are choosing and saying yes to the habits that they have around money, around stress, around conflict resolution, around how they treat other people. You can't change that. Now, it's not unless you have children or run a business that you find out what you're made of or you go through a crisis. You find out what you're capable of and what prevents you from being the best that you can be. Children are great little mirrors. They let you know what you are, who you are, because we can be blindsided to our qualities and they can reflect those qualities, and sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're cheeky, other times it's a little bit offensive. Sometimes, if you haven't had kids and you're out and you've made a little inside joke at home and then it goes out into the public and actually it's embarrassing and shameful, you don't recognise that until you're in that situation. And so I want to bring this around to how you heal yourself through this experience, whatever's triggered up for you. Is it where you want to go? If the goal is loving, harmonious relationship, is the habits that you do helping? If you think about a different kind of goal, popular goal, which is to have an ideal body shape or weight, and that version of you likes to eat much more healthier. They don't eat a lot of chocolate cake or lollies or anything like that. But in your current day, you continue to eat chocolate cake and lollies and all the things. there's a discrepancy between the two versions. It's one or the other. And your mind chooses the one that's habitual, the one that's automated. This is why I keep saying, is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Yes. So you're having to put in place a target, whether it's love, whether it's money, whether it's, self-image, whether it's work, whether it's just life in general. There has to be a kind of target so that when you die, you look back and you say, yeah, I did everything that I wanted to do, or I gave it a go, or I, wanted to experience a particular thing, so you went and did it. It's okay. The thing with these, the way that we direct our mind and our energy and our focus, we have to unhook from the old habits. We can't just do a whole massive system change, because that would totally crash out our bodies. We have to do it slowly and transition bit by bit by bit. It doesn't have to be done in one sweeping motion, but once you establish the outcome, once you establish where you want to end up, in terms of love, in terms of this relationship, if it's loving and harmonious, you want to be able to just get focused and notice what you do on a daily. Is this taking me to the end result, or is it taking me away? And you're asking that on a regular basis, but we're human, we forget. So if you are in this state, you can contact me, and I am a certified magnetic mind coach and counsellor. Or you can find someone that you feel aligned with who can help you through this process, because we fall into bad habits and we get distracted and it becomes hard and we forget why we're doing it, and it seemed like last week I was motivated, but this week I have fallen flat. And this is when you get support, the correct support, to help you stay on track. You want to be able to let go and lose those habits. Right, but we're coming back to this particular reading, which is, the relationship is in a state of conflict, depending on what stage you're in. But it's recognizing who you are in this situation and how you would like it to go forward. But also be willing to accept that the other party might not want to step up, and that's okay. So we've touched on this as it's come out. It says one belief. There's only one belief you need, and that is, if you focus on what you want to create and take action, you will get there. We're talking about alignment, we're talking about focus, and we're talking about one direction, not many different directions. We also have the card, creating a life that is fulfilling and in alignment with your heart's desires is your birthright. So if it's not working for you, you have to establish a rough guideline as to what you're willing to tolerate and when you decide that it's over. It's almost creating conditions, which I don't like to state, but there is at some point when you can't see progress or change in someone's behaviour, even though their words have said that they're going to do one thing, but they're still showing up doing something completely different. That's when you have to assess and go, well, what am I willing to tolerate here? And is it in alignment to my personal values and the person that I am as an individual? We start to close in and lock in that this is the only option and this is the only way, but there's plenty of options and there's plenty of different ways of going. Every experience, interaction is a lesson about who you are as a person, about how you evolve from that as a person. And some people can recognise that and take it forward for growth, and other people see it as a wall and run away because they don't want to deal with it. They just take the path of least resistance and they take the easy way out. So I keep saying, Is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Yes. I feel like the person that you're dealing with wants everybody to do it for them, and you can't learn people's lessons for them. So if you're not willing to work through this with that person, then they might not recognise it, and if you bring it up to them, they'll probably just brush it off. Then we have this queen who's in her power, and she's actually got her back to this. And this is the way the cards came out, but she has her back to this person. It's important for her to fill her cup up first. And again, I'm circling back to what I said earlier about the hot potato. Don't let anyone else put anything into your bucket if it's not filling your cup up first. Because what it ends up doing is it stops them from learning their lesson, and you're the one that gets weighed down. And we're looking at doing things differently. This is a self-love reading, this is a relationship reading, this is how do you move forward reading. I've got the life purpose deck to bring into this reading, because if you continue on with this situation, what is the purpose of it? What's the lesson, or what is it doing for you, and what's it doing for them on a grander scale? So we have one person who's artistic, one person who's creative, one person who has the need to be creative as a life source. It's their soul food, it's their nourishment, it's their soul food. Both of you actually want to make a difference in your family lines and in your own timelines, but also if you came together, you could create something together that impacts your community in a positive way. And for one of you, it's the artist. And now artists have a very abstract way of thinking around life. They think in concepts, they think way off the planet. I'm an artist, so I kind of get it. And they tend to look at life because through a different lens to the norm, because of a lot of stuff that they've had to go through themselves, all these illusions, all the lies, all traumas. This is, again, she was rising out of the darkness, out of the waters, out of turbulence, out of challenges. And art is a way to express those emotions and those experiences without using words. It talks to people on a high spiritual level. And whether you think you're an artist or not, everybody is given a pen and something to draw with when they're children, because they're not physically developed to use words or concepts around wording and things. It's usually later on from 7 onwards. So we are all coming from the same source, and your person, whether that's you or your person, you are creative, and this is your soul nourishing food, and whatever comes out of this relationship will funnel into that. It will feed that. It helps them deeply understand themselves and humanity in a different way. We have the other person, whether that's you or your person, who is becoming more sensitive and more intuitive and more understanding of what's in front of them. You see, it's them recognizing that the noise that they've generated within is actually within their control. It's something that they can master. It's something that they can decipher and say, well, here's actually what belongs to me and here's what doesn't. Or here's my hot potato and here's what I'm going to do with it. But they're understanding themselves in a much more spiritual nature, and their sensitivity, like in their body, how that shows up for them. And it's a very complementary relationship, and it can work when all parties put in the effort to make this difference. The bottom of the deck is heart's desires. Both people want a good life, a good companion to experience what the world has to offer. And they can do it alone, but it's better if they do it together. So it's understanding these two different energies that are actually coming from the same place, but it's being expressed completely different, and how they come together. One is through conflict and how you deal with that conflict and who you are during the challenging parts of the relationship. Looking at it from an angelic point of view, if the angels could step in and share the message, everything is in the divine right order. Everything that's happening right now is meant to happen the way it is, for your greatest good, for your highest good, but also for the highest good of your person and for everybody around you. The words are, everything is how it needs to be right now. Look past the illusion and see underlying order. If you're too focused on what other people are doing, what they're doing, what they should have been doing, what they're not doing, what they could be doing, how they're supposed to be doing it, you are pouring your energy into the other person. And I said somewhere back along the lines that you have to retract your energy from things that are draining you and fill it back into what you prefer. Now, if you're the artist, you're going to pour it more into your art. If you're the sensitive one, and tuning your body into the barometer that it's meant to be, because you're becoming more psychic as you go along, then you're going to develop your psychic sensitivities. And I've got the clear sentience at the bottom of the deck of this cards, which is about noticing physical and emotional feelings that recur. Okay, if it keeps showing up, it's a pattern. Whether it's intuition or whether it's something to be healed, it's a pattern. And we've got the scales here, which is about balance. You've got to fill your cup up. You've got to empty the cup too. Okay, you've got to empty it of all the things that are weighing you down, and then you can be selective about what you put back into that cup. And it's generally something that is satisfying, fulfilling, and energizes you, that you become overflowing, that you have so much love that it transmutes all the conflict and the worries and the fears and the what ifs and the didn'ts. Both parties need to work on it. Suggest this reading to the other party so they have an understanding. This is not to point fingers and point blame. This is to take ownership of your contribution to the whole, but then it's also establishing and defining the whole. What is it? The wholeness, W-H-O-L-E. The unification of these two individual parts coming together to create something for the future. So breaking outside of these illusions, working hard towards it, remembering the purpose, recognizing making choices at every moment. You have to know your target so that you know the next choice you're about to make is either taking you to that target or away from the target. Bottom of the deck is about forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the way you screamed at them. Forgive yourself for the way that you cold-shouldered them. Forgive yourself for saying one thing and doing another. Forgive yourself first. Learn from it and move forward. And then you can forgive the other person. It's about you nurturing and nourishing yourself, and if they're ready to meet you where you're at, then you can progress forward. Otherwise it's going to be a very tumultuous bus trip. It says pause before choosing. Really be intentional, be conscious. Are you coming from your wounded self, or these mismatched beliefs and intentions, or are you coming from your elevated, powerful self? You're not stuck, you're not a tree. It's just shifting the mindset into the right structure, which is around getting clear about where it is you want to go. And sometimes you've got to acknowledge where you're at. It's just not working right this minute. If you just acknowledge that, accept it, put it to the side, and allow yourself to drift and daydream, then you can go, oh, well, if I didn't have these problems, and I didn't have these setbacks, and I didn't have these limitations, this is what my heart truly desires. And then you can decide, you can choose if you're going to pick up those things again, because this is what we do in all aspects of our life. We accumulate the problem. We just start packing everything into our buckets. Other people start packing their shit into your bucket, and all of a sudden you're carrying buckets and buckets of crap, and then you want to share, this conflict with your friends, so you put that in their bucket, and then they're carrying half your shit and you're carrying half their shit. And we do this everywhere, in every aspect of life: work, love, money, and our true desires get lost and buried right at the bottom of the bucket. Do you understand the metaphor there? You only have a limited amount of space in your bucket, and you want to make it quality, you want to make it a good one, you want to make it you first, you're nourished first, so that you can come to the relationship in your best self. And if they have a loaded bucket, they get to do the same thing that you've done. They can choose to carry it or unload it in a healthy way. In terms of abundance, it's important to reach into quiet retreats. You guys need to give yourselves time to retreat. It doesn't mean running away. It doesn't mean going on a boys' holiday. It doesn't mean, going into your cave. It just means creating a space of solitude, and what do you call it, when you come back together, regrouping yourself, right? Like I said before, you're pouring your energy into this and that and this and that, and it's not what's actually energizing you. It's like trying to give your energy to a bucket with a hole in it, right? This is a quiet retreat about going somewhere within and recognizing where you're off kilter. You might do it over a cup of tea. You might do it on the throne while having a number two. You might do it in the shower, right? It doesn't have to be this big, spectacular retreat away that's cost you thousands of dollars. Although that helps and it can speed up the process, it doesn't have to be that. You can do it in the comfort of your car. You can do it sitting out on the lawn for 5 minutes, okay? It's about regrouping your energy, resetting, refocusing your choice, decision making. The overall bottom of the card is partnership, allowing healthful, supportive partnerships into your personal life and career. Both parties benefit as a result. You are receiving help from heaven and from a person who brings needed skills and resources. So we're not just talking about your personal love life, we're talking about everybody that you interact with, your siblings, your parents, your social circles, your work circle, everywhere that you're interacting with other human beings. They are also contributing to the weight of your bucket, and you're contributing to theirs. And so get the support and help that you need, and notice when your energy is uplifted and when it's getting drained. Okay, and there's people out there who chase dopamine all the time, and they keep chasing that one that keeps feeding their ego and fueling them, and that's elevating them. That's a false sense of stability and coming from a place of wounding rather than coming from a place of sustenance and substance. Okay, for the artist person in you, moonlighting, this is about you bringing that, making money from it. It's about you starting up a little part-time side gig, contributing it to it in ways that you can manage across the day. It doesn't have to be these big leaps and bounds. Don't compare yourself to someone else's 10 years in business to your one day in the business, okay? This is you making small progressive steps, planting little seeds every day within your capacity. Because when you do that, then you'll find that it speeds up, because you're understanding, you're improving the process, you're improving, how to do setups, how to paint faster, how to create in different ways that are more aligned with your heart, and you're evolving. You're evolving from the failures, you're evolving from the successes, but one day it's going to actually be the garden that you desired, but because you did little bits consistently every day. The person who's the psychic or the sensitive one, continually decluttering, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, getting rid of things, because again, in a different way but similar to this, is that they're filling their cup. They are the cup, they are the barometer, they are the physical expression of a grail, of a cup, right? They're absorbing other people's energies and entities, and people throw lots of stuff into their bucket, and it's really up to them to protect their energy in the best possible way. So they should be decluttering on a really, moment to moment basis, very discerning, very quickly, and also doing a practice every day. Whether it's meditation, retreating, whatever, it's clearing their energy, and you can do the same actually. You might flip the lessons. Every single person that's contributing to this can learn something from this particular situation, but the original situation was that there was a conflict of ideas, conflict of intentions, conflict of outcomes, and it's clearing away all of that and getting focused, like resetting and getting much more intentional and conscious about where you are both going together on this journey. Okay, friends, I hope this helped. Feel free to leave a comment. If you'd like support, just feel free to reach out to me. But until then, look after yourself, fill your cup, and make empowering choices. Much love. Bye for now.